I am currently in Schoenbrunn village in a little lantern tour. Now this tour is self-guided, sort of. There's lanterns everywhere, including one in my hand. A very beautiful thing. Almost want to keep it as a souvenir, but I'm pretty sure they all want it back. Alright, looks like we're coming up to our first stop. I'm going to resume recording once we get up there.
But they also did things like there was no witchcraft when you were out hunting, and no heathenish festivals or games, no dancing. That sounds familiar to anybody. So they definitely had strict rules that you needed to follow. But once you were in and you had your dwelling, you were in. So lots of other buildings to explore this evening. Different crafts to try, different treats to taste. Right, enjoy. You're welcome.
Sorry, I was a little late to this.
So this is the first. If you would have wanted to be a member of this community, this is where you would have first come. There were several houses at the entry of the village. They would have had you stay in those houses until you understood the rules and the laws. They had 18 of them.
Okay.
And during the Revolutionary War, they had 19, which was not to participate in the war, was the 19th one. So there are beds attached to the wall in there. If you peek to the left, you can see it.
All right.
And you would have learned those rules and laws, and then the leaders would have decided if you were worthy of becoming a member of the community. If so, they would have given you a plot of land to build your own dwelling. They might have just accepted you, or they might have given you a trial period as well.
Oh, okay.
So a very peaceful society, very communal. They shared everything, very obedient type of society as well.
All right, and also, you did mention earlier about like the witchcraft and
you could not use witchcraft while hunting.
Okay.
That was one of their rules.
All right.
So, they had some really interesting ones, interesting ways that they phrased them, but I mean, mostly common sense things.
And if you don't mind me asking, like, what were some examples of like witchcraft? Like, what were these?
You know what? I don't have that information. I haven't seen that in any research that I've been able to read. So,
oh, okay.
But there's probably something out there.
All right.
I don't know how you would have used witchcraft in hunting, but you weren't allowed to do it, whatever it was.
All right. Yeah, that would be definitely something I have to look up a little bit later.
Yeah, absolutely.
But thank you so much.
You're welcome. Enjoy the evening.
So that's actually quite interesting. There's a lot more history to this quaint little village.
This group under the bus, but this spring, my wife and I got to go on a research and development trip up to northeast Ohio, up to Essex County. We went on the Ohio Maple Tour. Awesome. Metro Parks, producers. We spent the entire weekend driving around all these producers, looking at these guys who are like, yeah, I got 100,000 cats in the woods. I got 20. Making all this $65 a gallon. Maple syrup market price. Okay. I'm going to come to Fort Ancient in March 4th. I'll teach you how to do it. You can do it for a little bit each. So anyway, so up there, I won't throw Metro Park under the bus. But a certain Metro Park up there, I saw the interpreter. I'm undercover. They don't know how much I have. Well, the Native Americans used to hollow out logs and take hot rocks and boil them, throw them in there, and it would boil it down. Alright? There's a problem with that. Now, I have cooked with hot rocks. Matter of fact, if you come see me November 4th, I'm doing wilderness skills, and we're actually cooking venison in a cow stomach with hot rocks and grains. It's going to be fun.
That sounds disgusting.
You ask, where do you get a cow stomach? Hispanic grocery store. Again, right there with the Hobby Lobby here. Alright? Resources. Alright, so here's the problem. If I reach that far, get hot rocks, and put them in solution, it will definitely blow. But But the problem is the ash off that rock in solution turns to lye, which is drain clean. Okay? Which is great if you want to take the hulls off corn and make hominy, or if you want to mix with lye and make soap, which gets rid of lye soap, great for getting rid of poison ivy. Alright? Or my tradition as a Viking, you take salted cod, soak it in lye, and make jellyfish for Christmas. Which is disgusting, but it's a rite of passage. You gotta eat. Alright? With green peas and white gravy. Alright? Terrible stuff. Okay? So they probably didn't do the wooden stock and the house. Now, along comes the 18th century, the time period that this was talks about in great detail. And now we have access to the trade. Alright? So you, young lady, have been cooking with your mama in a ceramic pot that's been sitting on the fire for 4 generations. Alright? And you chasing your brother around the lodge and you take that pot, you're not going to Amazon to replace it. You're going to have to go through the process of sifting the clay, making the it takes you a month to build a clay pot. Along some crazy dude dressed like me and said, you know what? You give me 5 beavers, I'll give you this lovely, brand new brass kettle from London. That's all it's going to be. Alright? So this is a lot more expensive than the hobby line. Alright, so big, now think big scale. This is a small kettle that I'm cooking, but for making syrup, you're using, and sugar, you're making huge kettles. But if you travel through the village, you'll see in some of these houses some of these bigger kettles. Alright? So that's what that's all about. Here's another tool that you would have in camp as colonists. This is a shoulder ewer. Okay? This is an actual antique one because I thought I could build one or I could spend the $30 and just buy it. Alright? So these 2 kettles hold 2 gallons, 7 pounds per gallon. That's basically 28 pounds sitting on your shoulder. And you're hauling the sap, the raw sap, to your sugar cane all the way down the track. Alright? Now the American Indian people got pretty smart. Instead of hauling the raw sap to where they're boiling it down at the farm, they just moved camp into where the trees grow. And you spend 2 months in sugar camp with all of your accessories making sugar. Alright? All that kind of stuff. Alright, as we walk around, quick. That is how you boil it down. You can boil it down in 1 kettle, but it's really strong. Put the fresh sap on the one side, boil it halfway down.
No running ahead.
The second kettle.
If I can't touch you with my hand, you're too far away. Okay?
And by the time it gets to
If I can
that
touch you.
process, by the time it gets to the 3rd kettle, you pour it into a tray like that to start draining it out.
Hey,
And
Ryan.
that's
Hey, Ryan, we have to be able to
that's
see
how
you.
you
You
make the
understand?
syrup. All right. Over here, in the corner of the house, we're being patiently smoky. It's homemade maple candles. So please just take one. This ain't Halloween. There's no slippers at the bottom of the box. Just take you a piece and have a wonderful evening. All righty, no problem.
I'm going to stuff over here.
Inside the house. Or you have to wait for him to get something together.
Well, it's just like the other house, buddy.
Can you go inside the house?
You can, but it's really smoky in there, so we're gonna do it outside first.
Yeah.
All right? Is that cool?
Yeah, the other one was smoky too.
Yeah. Inside.
Yeah.
All right. So if you guys back here can kind of come up, I'll do everybody. I'm good to about 300. Okay.
He's with Amber.
Well, welcome to Schoenbrunn. Welcome to the indigenous house here. This is temporary housing for the Delaware people who came here to be, established into the mission. All right. Now, I'm not from here. I've traveled 4 hours from southern Ohio I'm a park ranger for the Ohio Historical Society at a prehistoric site called Fort Ancient, and I'm the maple syrup guy. All right, so I'm from New England. I'm a 4th generation syrup guy. I started my career young and spry going, you guys don't talk about syrup. It's natural, it's cultural, it's economic. Really? And it's very tasty. And they're like, no, we've never done it since 1888. So you're the guy. So here I am, 30 years later. All right, so what we're going to do, these kerosene lanterns, even though they're not appropriate to the 18th century, are the bomb for what we're doing. This is awesome. All right, so we're going to talk about how American Indian people did it, then we're going to talk about how the colonists did it, and then if you want to know how to do it the modern way, you're going to have to come 4 hours south and visit me off I-71, 2 exits north of Kings Island on the first Saturday of March. All right? Because we got a sugar house, we got a pipeline. Now, yes, you can go up to Ashtabula and see it, but they get seen all the time. We're poor little maple farmers down in southern Ohio. There's only like 6 of us. All right? All right, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. First thing, kids, pay attention. All right? The first thing that's important when you are trying to make sugar for your house is you have to tap the right tree. All right? You better tap a maple tree. You tap the wrong tree or it will hurt. Here's what I'm talking about. You tap an oak tree, you're making tannic acid. That's how you take fresh cowhides and turn them into work boots. All right? You tap a pine tree, you're going to make turpentine and tar, which is great for the British Navy and coating ropes, but not so good for the gut. All right? Maple, and now there's 5 different types of maple trees. The maple tree you want is a sugar maple tree, Acer saccharum, highest percent of sugar in the sap. It takes, in modern time, well back then too I guess, but you're not making syrup, no way to store it, 40 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of syrup, okay? If you tap a red maple or a swamp maple, it's the one with the serrated leaves, not the smooth leaves like the Acer saccharum, all right? Acer rubrum, all right? It's 80 to 1. And if you're daft enough to tap a box elder tree, which is in the maple family, it's 120 to 1, all right? You don't want to be going into maple syrup business and selling box elder syrup. Your overhead's too high and people, it's not something. All right? So as a kid, you would know the woods like the back of your hands. Literally you would. If your mom and dad, now think about it, you're dead by 45, okay? So when you're 12, it'd be like in your 20s right now, okay? I'm long since gone to heaven playing on a harp, all right? So here's how this works. So you would know these woods. So they're like, go out there and go to the sugar bush, find some maple trees we can tap, all right? You're not gonna be doing this. Oh, what in the world did he say to get No, you gotta know this stuff. So you find your maple tree. This diameter of a tree right here is what you start with. Okay, this tree one size about a foot, 1 tap. You go up to 5 taps. After that, it's just gluttony. You don't want to go driving through Holmes County seeing a big old mother maple tree with 17 buckets hanging on it. That's just wrong on many levels. All right. So what you would do as an indigenous person is you would go find your maple tree. I have a wedge made out of elk antler, okay? And a mallet I made just for you guys for this weekend out of hickory log that had been sitting under my workbench for 6 years. This, my gosh, you can't even buy that at Kind Lumber up the road. I'm telling you, that's some dandy stuff. All right, so you take your wedge, you come to the sunny side of the tree, tap it in. Remember, no stone, no metal tools at this time. Tap it up in there, cut you a little slot. Take up spile, make out a white cedar. Red cedar, fence post. White cedar, spiles. Red cedar has rosin in it, it'll spoil the sap. White cedar's like balsa wood, it's tasteless. It's a wonderful tree, great stuff. Split that out and drips into your buckets. Around here, you make buckets out of slippery elm bark. Okay? Not American elm bark, slippery elm bark. There's a difference. Okay? If you're a native person in New York State, you make canoes out of elm bark. If you have a sore throat, lick the inside of slippery elm bark, takes the nastiness out of your throat. Quite disgusting. I think I would rather lick a frog, but enter the mucilage inside slippery elm bark. If you go to herbal stores and look at organic cough drops, slippery elm bark. I just saved you $8 at the CVS, all right? But you best know what a slippery elm tree looks like, because you could get, yeah, anyway. All right, so now up north, okay, so I grew up in New England, then I went to college in Wisconsin, studied Native Americans up there, all right? And we have birch trees. Now, I'm going to give you inside trader information. This is scrapbooking paper from Hobby Lobby. But by gum, does that just not look like birch bark? I'm telling you what, this is what you have to. You have to improvise and adapt when we're doing public programs. All right? Don't have the gas money in the budget to drive them back up to Wisconsin and see my buddies for bark. All right, so that's folded. You can take bark, birch bark, amazing stuff. Folded, make canoes, all sorts of stuff out of it. All right? Put that, so if you're up north, use birch bark. So you collect your sap. Again, we're not making syrup, we're making sugar. We're storing the sugar. This is our end product right here. That is a cake of homemade, by myself, maple sugar. Okay? Looks like a hockey puck, weighs like a hockey puck. But this is the good stuff right here. Lasts forever in the day. Okay? This is how you do it. You gotta boil it down. You gotta boil all the water away. So, before contact, they would probably use big ceramic clay pots. Now down at the museum, down south, Lebanon, we have a salt pan, a reproduced salt pan. It's about that tall, looks like a number 10 wash tub. And they believe, through the residue on that ceramic, through the archaeology of it, that the native people would go to Kentucky, go to Jackson, Ohio, get salt springs, boil it, get salt. Salt's important, it preserves your food. That's all you got. For spices and cooking, your succotash, you got salt and you got sugar. And ramps in the spring, which is wild onions, all right? Which, crazy wild onions. That'll cure a head cold just by walking over the plant, all right? So, that's what you gotta use. So, now along comes the 18th century, especially here in this village site, okay? And some dude comes up to you and like, hey buddy, you give me 6 beaver pelts or a bundle of deer hides, I will give you this lovely brass cat. Now you show up at the lodge with this after your wife's been struggling with a clay pot for 2,000 years, you are gonna score points, buddy. It's gonna be awesome. For 4 dead beavers from the swamp, I'm telling you, all right? So they're gonna take the beavers, turn them into hats, but that's a whole nother story in itself, all right? So that's what you want, all right? So a clay pot. I tell this to school kids all the time when they come visit, all right? You got a clay pot that your mom had to make from scratch, sift out the clay, get the finest material, make the coils, It takes a month to make a clay pot. Fire it just the right way, crush up the mussel shells for the grit. You're chasing your sister around the lodge and you kick that thing over, it's not going to be a happy day for you. I would move to the Dakotas. I would just up and just grab your stuff, just head west, all right? Because your mom 2,000 years ago cannot replace that ceramic pot and have it next day shipped, all right? It's going to take a month, and you can't make a ceramic pot in the middle of December. You're going to have to wait till spring. So you're going to be in a lot of jerky because you have no way to cook your beans, all right? So, clay pots out, trade kettles in. Now, this is a reproduction English trade pot, okay? Now, to scale, you're not boiling sugar in that thing. That makes good soup, but that's about it. But when you travel up to the village here, you'll see huge kettles, and that's what we're talking about. If you want, go up to Lehman's, you can buy one of these ones, 10-gallon one, for about $400. If not, no, I was just up there today to get stuff for work. I think the biggest one was about $900, all right? So, clay pots. So, that's what you're gonna use. So you boil that down, and once you get this to a certain consistency, and before we talk about that, if you kind of look in the house on my dying fire, finally, you can see I have 3 kettles on the irons, okay? Now, that's how this has worked. This is based on a illustration I saw of Potawatomi people on the White River, which is up there by what is now Indianapolis, all right? And so I researched this out, and this is the tradition that they would use. You take the fresh sap, fresh from the buckets, pour it in the first kettle on the fire, boil it down halfway, pour it into the second kettle. Put fresh sap in the first kettle. This is a limerick. Yes, last night I was stumbling over my words, so just kind of bear with me. All right, refill it with the fresh sap, the second kettle, boil it halfway down, put it in the third kettle, and you keep rotating the sap through there. By the time it gets to the third kettle, it's the consistency of pudding, okay? Which is what you want. Not so good to put on the pancakes, but syrup, you can't store syrup, okay? Now, when they were at sugar camp, they would take little birch bark cones, put fresh snow in there. Don't do this today. Heaven knows what's up in the air. And pour hot syrup over the snow cone. Oh yeah. As a duck hunter, the other thing, and I couldn't find it when I packed up to come up here, they take the bill of a goose or a big duck, big mallard duck, pour the syrup in there so it hardened and made duck popsicles. Put a string through the nostrils, hang on. You give that to a little 2-year-old Delaware kid, he's over there licking on it. It's awesome. And the public sees my little duck popsicles and they a little freak out. They're like, this is one crazy park ranger. But anyway, all based on science and history. All right. So that's the only time they would use actually syrup. So we're processing it down. Now, I showed you the big cake of sugar. All right. Now, if you want to process this into something a little bit more refined, right here in this porringer, can you raise that lantern up? And this is granulated maple sugar, all right? And this is how you do it. You take, I have to step up here. You pour that gooey stuff from the third kettle into a wooden dough bowl like that. And I need a volunteer. Who wants to volunteer? Come over here, buddy. What's your name?
Orion.
Orion? Like the
Constellation.
Yeah.
Dang, brother, that is awesome. All right, here you go. You get the good stick I made this spring. Yep. Look, it's even got a little show to people. Never have you back to the audience. Bad public speaking. FFA, 1973. All right, see that? Look at the maple leaf green. Yeah. So that is only used for making sugar. You don't be using that too. All right. So stand over there, right here. You ever paddle a canoe?
Yeah.
Awesome. So that's your paddle. You're going to start there and pull that way. Now this is filled with that gooey syrupy stuff, all right? All right, keep doing it. And I'm going this way. A little faster, I'm retiring in 3 years. There you go. Okay. Just like that. Now, because of the unfinished bowl, the water is absorbed into the wood, the sunlight is drying out the top part, and the friction is turning into granular situation. And 2 hours later, after getting to know you real well, we will have a porringer full of granulated maple sugar. All right, that's how you do it. 2 hours. Holy cow. Yep. Of course, they would use. That's a small size, but I made one at the park. It's pretty substantial, like a half a bathtub. A drywall mixer on a Ryobi drill would be awesome. I don't think they had it in the 18th century, but that would work pretty slick. All right, so that's how you make the sugar. Now, for storing it, of course, this is birch bark. Now, this is real birch bark. That's the Hobby Lobby one. All right, this is called a McCuck. Again, this is a model. These would be like that, hold 40 pounds of sugar. This, of course, will not hold 40 pounds, but you get the basic gist of what I'm trying to say. All right. Now, put this in perspective. I'm going to tie it into this particular site and why Miss Erin, my friend of OHC from a long time ago, sent me in this cabin all the way up the road 4 hours. That sign in the back, which you cannot see, but come back again if you're local and read it. It talks about the missionary guy, David Zeisberger, who talked about sugar camp at Schoenbrunn, and each family unit made 100 pounds of sugar every spring. Now put that in perspective. That is 2 bags of Saccrete from the Home Depot to set your posts at your gate. Now go to Home Depot, grab you a bag of Saccrete, and now you see how the process of how we have to make sugar, and you got 2 of those things. All right, and that would keep them for the entire winter. All right, so pioneer times, I hate using the word pioneers, colonist times here in the 18th century. You're not using this technique. Now you have a bit and brace, which it's dark. I can't find where I put that thing. It's where is it? It's here somewhere. Anyway,
Probably
here it
inside
is, right? Well, there's the drill. Maybe I'm stepping on it.
Is it in front right there?
Man, it's somewhere. Anyway, it's a big hand crank drill. You drill a hole.
Yeah, you had it earlier.
I did.
I saw it.
Yeah, I'll get my lamp from that.
Fun
You
to
drill a
use.
hole, and then you go and you make spiles like we use today in modern times, except they're made out of metal, out of elderberry or staghorn sumac. All right, and it has a pithy center. So what you do is you take a hot piece of metal, rat tail file or whatever, heat it in a fire, and burn out that pith. And then you go to a cooper, who's a guy that makes buckets. Not a lot of coopers around anymore. Trades young people are the answer. Learn how to make buckets, and you'll make bank. I'm telling you, nobody makes wooden buckets anymore. Okay, it's quite the skill. All right, so this is called a piggin, and that one stave is extra long with a hole in it. You actually use that to hang the bucket off the spot. All right. So that was that for. All right. Again, you would boil it down in all these big kettles, and then you would store your sugar in this thing, another bucket called a slack bucket. All right. So when you go to the antique stores and you see all these things, I'm like, what in the world is that? You know, my mom used to use one to hold all her sewing equipment. All right. Historically, it was used to hold sugar, flour, salt, all your dry goods in a slack bucket. Pour vinegar in here, wrong kind of wood, wrong kind of way of making a bucket, gonna go right through there. All right. So that is 200 years of maple syrup history. If you want to know modern stuff, you're gonna have to come to Fort Ancient and visit me in March. Or come here the 4th of November and help me brain tan deer hides with pig brains and cook venison out of cow stomachs with hot rocks. Yes.
Interesting.
I will make history fun for the youth of America. Yes, I will. They may need counseling, but they will. Yes, they will. All righty. Questions, comments, or concerns? If you want, if it's not smoky, step in. Also, on the corner of the house outside is real maple sugar candy. Please take one. This ain't Halloween. There's no Snicker bars at the bottom of the basket. Just straight up 22 pounds of sugar candy. Help yourself to a piece.
Shall we grab one for Izzy and Haven?
I'm good.
Do you want one?
Alright,
Liz?
grab one. Okay, am I going against the flow here?
Didn't we already see this one? Yeah.
Who's on the other side?
On the other side. Just like it.
Yeah, probably just like it.
Yeah. Buy one tab, get one free. Oh, new house. Can you see it? No way.
There's supposed to be 17 cabinets. I could do that. I'd love to.
Let's see what we got in here. Okay, that's a lot lower than I expected. I about bumped my freaking head. Alright, here's the pit. There's a vent up there, so you don't accidentally smoke yourself out. Interesting. I'm gonna let y'all know right now they did not have fire extinguishers like this back in the 1800s. Let's see what else we got. Alright, so I'm going along this path.
This is called candle safe. Once they had their candles made, they had to keep the metal because of the purity. This is originally the purity of Christ. So they used animal fat or tallow for everyday use. Anybody got any? Thanks for coming. Anybody got any questions?
So are the candles a mix of honey and wax and
Well, back in those days, There were beehives. They just put beehives in the tree. So they wouldn't get that much honey, they wouldn't get that much wax. Of course, this was all forest, except for where your cabin sat in the garden area behind. So your chances of coming across
Smells good in here, Rob.
were a little bit better than what we have today. Yeah.
So these are all candles that I'm.
Pardon?
These are all candles right here.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. It's
yeah. There are different, as soon as this is,
oh, you got some.
I'm like totally lost on this.
You got wax being made in there.
Keep dipping and dipping.
one nice thing, I can sit here, I can make quite a few candles in a 4-hour period.
Couple more minutes.
I probably could do longer, but my arm gives out. Now these here are big enough. And these are getting close.
No, let me say that.
If I put more, if you notice on the bottom of these, look how many candles I could put on it. If I put more than 6 or 8, they stick together. Especially if the wax is really, really warm.
Feel like you-
I tell you, there feels like there's something down in there. Nope, it's all clear, except for a few wicks. Whenever the candles get down, you know, like that, I throw them back in and remelt them. Because we don't wanna waste any wax. And the more it's heated on the fire, then the darker the candles get. And then when I add new wax that's light, sometimes I get spotty candles. Yes.
Can I get one in?
No, you can't dip, but you could touch. I'm afraid you'll drop it into the hot wax and get stuck. But you can touch the candles.
Be very slow, very careful, okay?
What did they use for wicks?
Well, in the village, they grew both hemp and flax,
Okay.
so that's what they used. Then they had to watch for a hollow tree. Did you just come in?
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute, I'll start my spiel.
I think we saw you last, and I asked if you were making beeswax candles. And you told me they only did that for like special occasions.
Is that,
And I was just wondering, where they got their wax? Was
You
it-
can if you're really tall. Watch your head.
had to watch for a hollow tree.
Bedroom. There's
No beehives, but the bees would get into a hollow tree.
interesting.
And they only used it.
This is someone's bedroom.
They used animal fat or tallow for the day. I thank you for coming.
Oh,
Yeah,
thanks,
this
bro.
is Daniel Davis's cabin. And of course, you can see he has a nice cabin because he has an extra room and a back door and a wooden floor.
Are you trying to summon a massive fart?
We used to build a cabin, somebody's coming.
Look what? There's a tree over there. Got it?
Okay, it's just a little long.
Yeah.
I thought I actually stumbled something for a minute, like what the heck?
No, there's something right behind you though. Made you look.
Ah, you got you. Slow down, slow down.
Hoff's cabin, and he was also a national helper, which meant you guys could say you can try it again too if you want to. this is a wooden one, so it's not as heavy. So he actually worked very closely with David Zeisberger, the lead missionary. He would be a pastor if David Zeisberger was gone, or if they wanted him to do any of the services, but he would also be somebody who helped with correspondences and going to some of the other mission settlements too. He was also a medicine man previously. He was from the Muncie, and he brought his knowledge of all the herbal remedies so that he could use them and he could actually help serve Schoenbrunn in that way too. Is there anyone have any questions?
So he was an Indian.
He was, yes,
Okay.
yes, he was Native American. So, and he was from Pennsylvania. He was not one of the Delaware. The majority of the village was actually Delaware Moravian. They were not European missionaries that were coming over. So there were about 5 to 6 missionaries here normally, and that would change depending on how many people would be here. But they would have numbers 300 to 350 people living here at the time. The majority, about 95%, were probably the Delaware Moravian that had moved to them. So it was, yeah.
The next guy was Wicked.
Wicked Con. Did you see?
We got a book at home about it.
Okay, yeah, he had been very, very influential.
He was a
Delaware.
speaker according to that book.
Okay.
A really good speaker.
So you had speakers, you had medicine men, you had people that were actually, a couple people who were chiefs of their tribes even that ended up converting to the Moravian faith. And so once they converted, they would be baptized and given a new name, it was their Christian name. So although we still call this Pomp and Honk, he was actually given the name John or Johann. So we have our mortar and pestles up here if anybody does want to try them. Pomp and Honk was from the Muncie tribe, and he actually had converted while living in Pennsylvania to the Moravian faith and came with David Zeisberger, the head missionary, to help establish Schoenbrunn village. But he, as a medicine man, previously brought his knowledge of medicinal herbs with him. And so that is why we have our mortar and pestle up here. So
We're gonna let other people take a drink. Thank you so much.
you're welcome, guys.
It's more like a press and twist kind of thing.
Yeah, so yeah, this one will work your muscles definitely. So if you can imagine doing this pretty regularly to grind up your herb. But Pomp and Honk was someone who worked very, very closely with David Zeisberger, who actually worked with him in Pennsylvania also. So they came over together and helped to establish Schoenbrunn village. So previously, Pomp and Honk had been a medicine man, and he brought his knowledge of herbal remedies, and he used them while he was at Schoenbrunn too. He only lived here for 3 years. The settlement itself was abandoned after 5 years, but he did die while he was living at Schoenbrunn. So in this cabin was him and his wife. So that's the bedroom, the kitchen that you have over there. That's kind of the sitting room a little bit too. So it was, yeah, there's where we store the wood at right now.
No, they usually use a lot of just the leaves or some of the stems too.
They could have used some of the stems too,
And
and
roots.
so, yeah, they used a lot of roots, yes. And so,
Tinctures and stuff.
most of what, I'm sorry, I cannot tell you most of what I have pulled down, I pulled it down in the dark. So, some of the gardens that we have, we were growing some of the more, native plants that they would have been using at the time.
Okay.
And having here. A lot of times, their gardens, they would have an herbal garden, but they would also have the fruit right there, and they keep it very close to their house. You are welcome, guys. Yeah. I'll see you next week.
Yes.
Yeah. So, for those of you who are just coming in, if you haven't heard, we are in Pomp and Honk's cabin, but he was considered a national helper, which meant that he was.
Okay, so that was the cabin that, I guess in a way is a pharmacy, right? I would think. Oh, what's in here? Please don't.
Hi.
Hi there.
Let's keep going, girls. So this is David Zeisberger. Zeisberger's cabin. So he was the head missionary here.
All right.
And he would have wrote his diary with ink and quill. Oh, did you want to keep that? Did you want to keep this?
Addie, do you want to keep it?
You can keep that. Yeah. Thank you. And I wrote that.
Yeah, mine looks a lot better.
And because of his detailed diary, we know who was living here, where they were living, what they did in daily life. So it's importance of historical record keeping. You definitely would not know as much about the village without his writings. So if you like, you can try it out.
All right. Well,
And you can lay your lantern down if you want to.
Alrighty.
And you just pick any quill you like, and you can dip it in some ink and give it a go.
Okay. I really hope this twine doesn't burn.
I think it would be okay.
Okay.
Yes.
So I just want to pick up a feather.
Yep, any one that you like.
Okay, this one looks pretty nice. And into. Oh boy, now how do I just.
Yep, just like that. Yes, it would have taken a lot more patience.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. Can you imagine writing a whole diary with that?
I've had writer's cramps before. I don't think I can imagine like the amount of cramps you might have had using a
Right.
feather.
Yeah,
So-
you can take that with you if you like.
Alright, I think I'll just leave it here, let someone look at it.
Sounds good.
Alright, thank you so much,
Enjoy
guys.
the rest of the village.
Thank you.
Has some roots, I guess. Yes.
That's alright.
Could I get you to take a picture of all of us?
Yeah, I can do that.
Look real close. Pick out a Caucasian other than Jesus. Can you find one for me? And they have a hard time finding him. Because the Moravians tend to go where other missionaries. Well, yeah, because I haven't read that.
Read a little.
Okay. This valley is 6
Oh, yeah.
Moravians were very small. Moravian pastor.
Oh, service is starting. Better find my seat.
If 5 Moravians walk into the bar, 4 of them and what it is now, really well. If 20 Moravians show up at your wedding reception, 19 of them are going to be of color, and 1 is not. And the reason I use that illustration is that the majority of our Methodists are in Africa and Caribbean and
That's almost where the missionaries went.
where the missionaries went. That's the problem. Europe are getting smaller. North America, there's fewer and fewer every year.
Here's about jobs.
Again, South Africa.
Like a slave who longs for the shadow, like a hireling who looks for his wages.
So I am allotted months of emptiness and nights of misery and
Oh dear.
I'm sure you're doing it.
I can hear it in there getting grinded at least. And then you would put it through a
grinder after that to make it more, or is that?
It wasn't super refined at this point. If it was like a corn flour, it'd be much more refined. It was for a cornmeal.
So they would use the cornmeal for like bread, or?
Yeah, we could like cornbread or corn mush. And then next door too, we're churning butter, so that would definitely pair with our.
There you go. Mush, some butter, some honey from the tree.
And if you actually look kind of above this fireplace hearth here, these are the bread pans that it would have been cooked in as well. Alright. Welcome in. In here we are making cornmeal. So we have all of our different kernels of dried corn that have been placed into these corn mills, and we're grinding it up. If any of you are interested in trying it out.
You want to try it out? I mean, I will.
Just a little up and down here.
Oh, I figured out what that sound was. Listen, get there then.
I have no idea how loud this is out there, but.
We heard it, we didn't know what it was. We just like.
Alright, so how I usually do it, just kind of grab it with two hands, and then up and down. You can go with kind of the angle of the inside here too.
I'm not made for this. Just the whole thing. Jenny, you should try. Okay. It'll work out.
Would you like to try? We are
Yes, you.
In the early 1800s, they introduced a butter churner that's who works with your foot. So it allowed the women to be churning the butter while they're also doing other things with their hands.
So they multitask
yes,
back then.
always.
Always.
But in the 1770s, they were still doing it this way.
I imagine a lot of kids, that was their job, probably.
Probably.
Get some of that energy out.
Like, mommy can't go play? No, you need to turn the butter first.
Thank you very much.
Do you have it in here? We do have some cream in there, and it's really thickening over the, yes. Had a lot of help tonight, so that's been great. It gets tiring pretty quick when you're doing it like that. But yeah, it's good. It's actually starting to come out the top here a little bit too. You can see it. I don't know if you can see that from the dark thing.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
So this is the butter churner in question.
Yeah, this is the butter churner. You want to give it a turn?
Sure. Let me.
Set that there.
Alright.
Okay.
There we go.
You feel it down there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's come a long way since just an hour ago.
Yeah, and just for like a random question, how long would it take to churn like a batch of butter like this size?
Yeah, I think just a couple of hours, but I don't know the specific time. I'm gonna have to Google that so I know next time.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, churn the butter. So this is butter. It's regular butter.
Okay. God, my pants are about ready to fall. What is this? Oops. Is that where their house was? Is that it? Or is it coming up? Oh, how do you sleep on that thing?
It was so funny.
Yeah,
I
you
was
should just.
trying to pull a joke off my
It's down over the hill from here. There's actually also a spring house there in the dark. It's not lit up right. So based on where the spring was,
This candle stuff helps. I don't know what you said.
It wasn't like a T-shape the way it is today, and it would have just been dirt and that.
Okay, so that last stop I was just at had cookies, apple juice. I cannot say that was apple cider because that was really good. And an apple. What's it? I'm at brother Abraham and sister Anna. National Helper? Huh? Alright. That's all interior. Got your front door, the bed, a back door, baby's crib. Were they basket makers? There's no one in here to explain who these guys were. What does this say? Oh, they made salt? Or they boiled salt? Alright. Maybe I did need a tour guide with me to explain each house. Or is that what a national helper was?
So during the time of when schoolhouses were around, they would teach every single subject that they should learn under one roof.
Right, exactly. And so they taught it in the Lenape language, although they did teach English as well, but everything was taught with the Lenape language too, which was pretty neat. So they all learned that because during that time, it wasn't very common for everyone to be able to get an education. It was typically the people that were of a higher social class that had more money because it was more practical for the people that were of middle class or lower to be able to have their children help them with work. And it was kind of harder too to be able to find teachers. So the Moravians out here, they really did value education for their children, which is why you'll be able to see some of the education too, and they had both the boys and girls educated as well. Thank you. Yeah, of course. Thank you guys for visiting today. Enjoy the rest of your visit.
There's a wildfire right there.
Yeah, it's been going pretty well. Getting it ready to be able to warm up the tea to be able to boil. So it's a little bit different from our typical, it's a block of tea. So you have to have the water boil first, and you put in your block, and it would pretty much activate your normal tea at that point.
Interesting.
A little bit different than today.
Yeah,
But
quite
it
different.
was pretty good though back then because it was a lot more shelf stable, so it could last up to 20 years, which was really good for being as far removed as you were from the major cities, which is part of the reason that they moved out here too, just to be able to get a little bit more peace and away from the conflict. So, are you guys enjoying your visit so far?
Yes.
Oh yeah, it's been real nice.
It's fun to be able to come out here at night too, because it kind of gives it a whole different feel to than the
It
day
does.
too. Yeah.
And then seeing like people dressing like back then, it makes it like more real. Like,
For
well,
sure.
at least some, like gives you the feeling.
Right, for sure. It's pretty neat.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for visiting. Enjoy the rest of your visit.
Thank you. All right, I gotta watch my step here. That's nice. Oh, is this branching paths or what? Guess we could go up this way. I am an hour into this recording. Yeah, the lantern's not really helping me out here. I've been using the flash on my camera. Let's see what we got. Another house for Sister Lucia or Lucia? Anyway, I am breaking and entering in someone's home. So I finally did it. I freaking knocked my head on a doorway, and it's solid wood. So I'm in a lot of pain. I'm probably gonna have a headache tomorrow morning. Oh boy.
They made women's jewelry out of steel. So go buy a nice
There you
steel
go.
necklace for Christmas, and she'll be really happy. So steel, the only part on the original guns that's actually steel is this piece and the spring. Everything else is made out of forged iron. Everything. The barrel, the rest of the parts of the gun. Okay? Directly under that is a little indentation called the pan. Now you gotta remember this, you're gonna have a test. Called the pan. And going into the barrel, you can't see it, there's a little hole called the touch hole. And that's the key parts of this. So, when you're ready to fire this, when you load it, and you're ready to fire it, you're gonna, the cock has 3 positions. It has a fired position. It has a half cock position. That's supposed to be a safe position. Because that's supposed to go off half cocked. That's where that saying comes from. And there's a full cock position. And when I load this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the powder and the ball or buckshot or balls in the barrel. I'm going to ram it down. I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to put a little bit of powder in that pan, and I'm going to close that, and then it's going to be ready to fire. And when I'm ready to fire it, I'm going to pull this back, full cock position. And when I pull the trigger, the flint's going to fly forward. The flint hits the steel, and when flint hits steel, what happens? Spark. It sparks. Okay, now. Here's your science lesson. When you see those sparks, what are you seeing? What is it? It's like, what is it? You see sparks, what are you seeing?
Problems.
It's a fire, right?
Fire.
It's a fire. And when you make a fire, you need 3 things. What do you need to make a fire?
Wood.
Okay, or a fuel, anything that will burn. Okay, fuel. What else?
A fireworks, something to light the fire.
Okay, you need a heat source. It's called a heat source. You need a fuel and a heat source. And then, of course,
What's all around us? Oxygen, air. So you need oxygen, air. You need a heat source, and you need a fuel. What a lot of people don't know, and even a lot of adults I've talked, is that when you see that spark, you see that fire, what you're actually seeing is burning steel. Flint is sharper and stronger than steel. They make surgical tools today with flint edges. You can sharpen a flint like this to a micromillimeter, whatever, sharper than a medical scalpel today. And anybody who shoots these guns and they never say they never cut themselves on these things, they're lying to you. We all have done that. The guys in the Marine Active Group, we've all cut our ourselves very sharp. And when that strikes that, what's happening is it's taking off microscopic shavings of steel. Those microscopic shavings are the fuel. What's the heat source?
Heat source.
What's this called? When you rub your hands together?
Friction.
Friction. That strike, when that flies down, that creates friction. So the friction is the heat source. It's going to strike that steel. It's going to take off microscopic shavings of that steel, and those microscopic shavings are going to burn. So when you see a spark, what you're seeing is microscopic shavings. So when you're in school, ask your teacher, she knows what a spark is. Okay.
Where are you going to shoot it?
I'm going to shoot it right here, but I'm going to show you how we load this first. Now, if this was a rifle, I'd use a horn. I'd have a pre-measured amount of powder because you want the exact amount of powder every time. I'm going to use a patch. I'm going to use a real tight-fitting ball. It's going to be hard to load. But the idea with those grooves, that's why this is so accurate. That's why I could shoot something over 200 yards. The problem with the rifle is it takes about 30 seconds to load. A smoothbore gun, like during the Revolution or French Indian War, when they're using these muskets, smoothbore guns, this is 75 calibers. You're shooting an undersized ball. The ball that you're shooting out of this is a 69 to 70 caliber ball, almost 5 calibers smaller, so it's easy to load, and you can load it fast. A good musket person can shoot 3.5 to 4 shots a minute. That's fast shooting at that time. That's fast. 3.5 to 4 shots a minute. The disadvantage is with a smoothbore gun like this with an undersized ball, the accuracy, you lose the accuracy. At 100 yards, this ball could drop 2 feet. So when these armies closed in on each other in the field of battle in the Revolution, they wouldn't even think about pulling the trigger until they got about 80 yards apart. More so, 50 yards apart, 25, 30 yards apart. That's not real far. And they're standing shoulder to shoulder, face to face. But you don't need that accuracy because you're standing in a long line of men. I'm standing in a long line of men. If I level my gun down at you and that ball drifts over and hits him, that's okay. If I aim at your chest and it drops down and hits your knee, that's okay. 1 for 1, you're taking somebody out of commission. So in the Revolution, they're commanding like groups of men like large shotguns. Now, here in the Ohio wilderness, when these guys have these weapons, smoothbore guns, trade guns, smoothbore muskets or Fowlers, that are used for hunting, understand that in the Ohio woods, you don't have those 100, 200 yard open shots. Everything you hunt, you shoot is usually pretty close range. And especially birds and animals. And when they're walking through the woods, a lot of times they're not shooting just a ball, they'll have buck and ball, or they'll load the entire gun with these small, usually about 32 caliber. Christopher Guest is coming through the valley in 1750 with a group of men exploring for the Ohio Land Company. And he writes daily, keeps a daily journal. And he just gets on the Great Trail across Beaver Creek into Ohio. And he says he and this other guy, I forget his name, fired into this flock of birds, flock of turkeys, and killed 12 birds. 2 guys, 2 guns, 2 shots, and they killed 12 turkeys. How do they do that? Because this is what they're shooting out of. Probably a whole lot of those spread out like a shotgun. And you guys hunt?
Yeah, I used to.
No, I've got some deer in my life, over 100 yards. But most of the deer I ever shoot in Ohio are 25 to 30 yards, 40 yards away.
30 yards.
Because you're shooting in the wood. So although rifles are neat to have because they're so accurate, they're not as practical out here in the frontier because you're using them to hunt with. So let's go ahead and load this up. Since this is a smoothbore gun, if I'm hunting for deer or bear and I'm using a solid ball or buck and ball, rather than take that slow loading, I can go ahead and pre-make a cartridge. And this is what they did in the military. It's just a paper tube rolled up. It's filled with powder, the amount of powder you want to shoot. And if this were a live round, the ball would be wrapped in this tube, or buck and ball, or a whole bunch of little buckshot in here. It would all be one self-contained. So the first thing I would do is I'm going to bite that off. I'm going to pour the powder down the barrel. And then the paper, the ball, everything, I was going to push it with my finger. And then I'm going to take my ramrod and I'm going to be sure that I get that rammed all the way down to the bottom of the barrel. Now, if you get older and you get interested and you start shooting muzzle loading guns, whether it's flintlock or percussion, or even modern day muzzle loading guns, one of the things you never want to do is pull that trigger if that ball's not all the way down there. Black powder will foul up real quick. And even with this, the first 2 or 3 loads, I load this shooting live competition, it loads easy. And then I gotta start pushing hard, and then a little harder. And with a rifle, because they're using such a small, tight-fitting ball, even during a battle, you might get 5 shots off, and you have to stop and wet a cloth and swab your barrel, because that powder clogs up, and it chokes off the barrel. So every once in a while, you might get that ball stuck right here. The last thing you want to do is pull the trigger. Because what do you have in your hand? We call it a pipe bomb today. We have a pipe bomb in our hand. And one of 2 things can happen. If I shoot this, if I pull the trigger, the pressure might be enough. If the ball's not super stuck too bad, it might push that ball out. But if that ball is really lodged in there tight, and I pull that trigger, the back of this gun is going to blow up my face. So you always want to be sure that ball, even if it's hard or tight to get down, as long as it's seated on the powder, it's good. Now I'm going to prime with a small priming thing. I'm going to put some powder in the pan, and yeah, I'm going to get this powder right by this little candle. It's real safe. I'm going to put some powder in the pan, and now it's ready to shoot. Now it's ready to shoot. If I can see it in the dark. So, if I get ready to shoot this, I'm going to pull the cock back in a full cock position. I pull the trigger, that's going to fly forward. The flint hits the steel. Steel makes a spark. The sparks drop in that pan. It ignites that powder, that little touch hole that could get clogged up. That's going to shoot that flame through that touch hole into the main charge and shoot off. Now, if everything's working right, this will fire pretty fast, but there's a lot that can go wrong. The flint might be dull. The frizzen might have film on it that needs wiped off. That little touch hole might get clogged up. And when it's damp and moist like this, sometimes you get that little hang fire. They usually fire pretty quick. Matter of fact, when you get to history and you study Revolution, and I know all of you remember this, the Battle of the Clouds, right? You all studied that, American Revolution, the Battle of the Clouds. You ever hear of it? Probably not, because it never happened. What happened was there were 2 armies, the British and Americans were coming out to engage each other. These long lines, hundreds of thousands of men, and they're coming out in open field, they're watching each other across the field, they're starting to maneuver, and guess what happens? A big thunderstorm rolls in, starts to rain. You know what happens? Both sides turn around, we're back to camp. Because these don't fire in the rain.
No.
And so it was a battle that was getting ready to take place that never took place. And they call it the Battle of the Clouds. And that's why. So anyhow, let's shoot this and then you get an idea. And I tell you what, I'm going to let you say fire. That way everybody will know when I pull the trigger. All right, how's that? Okay, so whenever you're ready.
Fire.
Okay. And that shot pretty good. And I love the smell of gum. It smells just like lemonade. But that's how it fired. And like
Well,
said,
I hope y'all viewers did not have your volume up by any chance.
And the accuracy comes with the closest you get. These guns don't have rear sights. They have a bayonet lug. You sight down the barrel and use this. But in competitions with us, and we shoot these all the time with the Marine After groups and the Revolution groups, at 40 yards, 30 yards, I can stick this in a pie plate like this. You get 50 yards, you get out here and you might miss a target maybe hit 3 or 4 shots out of 5. At 80 yards, if I hit 3 shots out of 5 or out of 6 or 10, that's good. Like I said, 100 yards, that ball could drop 2 feet. So they never really. So Bunker Hill, they talked about the saying, the guy yelled, "Don't fire till you see the whites of their eyes." Whether that was actually said or not, I don't know. But I think the intended was, don't fire till they're close. And at about 35 yards, you can start seeing the whites of a person's eyes, and that makes these real accurate. You guys got any questions or anything?
I think about a few.
But anyhow, weapons were really important here in the frontier, and here again, you can see the amount of gun parts we find in these sites they were using. They're still using bows and arrows. And as far as the animals, archaeologically, when we dig these sites, in Ohio here, 18th century, white-tailed deer, very common, turkey, very common, black bear, then you start getting some elk, less numbers, and that's probably the key things. And they didn't really always hunt smaller game as much. You think about rabbits. If you read Heckwalter's journal, the Indians, the Delaware kind of thought the rabbits were these little sacred animals, family members. So they never hunted rabbits. So you don't find rabbit bone in trash pits. One thing that's missing though is there were buffalo here in Ohio, and we know that they're hunting buffalo. What's left of them, the woodland buffalo. We know in accounts that guys are going into these villages and staying in villages, sleeping on buffalo hides. But the question is, why don't you find buffalo bones in these garbage pits on any of these sites?
They didn't need them, they just used them for their hides, I guess.
Well, you're kind of on the right track. Look how big a deer, they're using the hides, they're using the bone for stuff, so they're bringing that, they're gutting it in the field and they're bringing that animal in. Buffalo's pretty big. There's only two things they want. They want the hides and they want the meat. They're going to debone it in the field, just like I got a friend that goes up in Montana and hikes up 10, 15 miles with a bow, shoots an elk, and will debone that animal and take 3 or 4 trips hiking and carrying the meat out. Because you don't take anything with you. You debone it, you take the meat, you wrap it in the hides, and you get it out. So the remains of that animal is left above ground, and in the 18th century, it got to the point where wolves would actually be attracted to gunfire. Some guy kills a deer and guts it, man, the wolves come, there's a free meal right there. Even today, hunting deer in Ohio, if you field dress an animal, go back 2 days later, the coyotes already have it going. And so these bones disappear. There's 3 sites in Ohio that have ever found any traces of buffalo remains. 3 sites in Ohio. One of them is here shown.
Yep, I found I think that was your fireworks in here.
In here, I thought there was just fire in a cannon. I wasn't expecting.
I think it was the Civil War reenactment from SOAR.
Oh.
Because there were a lot of guns going off real fast. I don't think he was firing all that fast. Well,
Where the heck am I going?
This is the cemetery.
Oh.
Yeah.
So are we going to have to go all the way back?
Well, I don't know if, I'm assuming that this is real. Don't step on the grave. You hear me?
Oh, I am still recording. Whoops.
You know, there were a lot of them, like, while I was laying in too, but then after that, there really weren't any. And I saw a lot of bats, which was very cool. Yeah. I always wanted a pet. They've been super
Ugh.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah.
You want to see a picture of what the school book would have looked like back in 1772?
Sure.
It was actually written by Zeisberger, but it is in the Lenape language. So here's what the words would have looked like.
Sure.
And he hand wrote every single one of these for the kids back in the day. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
So about how many kids were, you know, in school
Yeah, so
during?
there's no exact number from what I know, but I do know there was at least over 60 original cabins, which means that it would probably be a decent class size.
Oh,
Do you
okay.
know by chance? I don't know. I don't think we have an exact number, but enough to probably get a hand cramp.
Oh yeah. All right. Oh, thank you.
No problem. You have a good one.
Thank you. Okay, so we are coming up towards the end of the tour. What's in here?
Would have been, and of course the population went, you know, high and low. It was very much like a large bed and breakfast in modern terms. I mean, people could come and go as they wanted, as long as they behaved themselves, followed rules. There were a lot of Moravian rules, but if you left your gun at the door, so to speak, at the gate, you were allowed to come in. It didn't matter what side you were on, whatever. You know, all were welcome as long as you were. You didn't cause trouble, and that trouble did happen. And as the village went on in the 1770s with the coming of the American Revolution, there were a lot of problems with the British thinking that the Moravians were on the side of the Patriots, and the Patriots thinking they were on the side of the British. And truth be told, they were on a little more leaned on the Patriot side.
Yeah.
Are you local?
Yeah, we're from Sugar Creek.
Have you seen Trumpet in the Land?
Yeah, my
You know what
husband
I-
and I.
okay,
did.
well, there-
I want to
You
see
was in
it.
it? You said?
My husband.
It's a
and I
really
saw
good
it.
play.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The
Well-
children didn't see it.
Okay,
It
but,
was
but that's the
really
story,
good,
and
yeah.
that you know what happened there, and that is this place. You know,
Yeah.
that was the beginning.
Now,
And,
was it at Noddenhutton where?
You
where
said
the
it the right
massacre-
way. Thank you. Good night. Yeah, that's good. Oh, I love that. Well, yeah, people. I know it's Gnadenhutton. What is it? Yeah, Gnadenhutton. Yeah, the Germans don't have a G, a just sound. It's a gus sound. So. Yeah, right. That was where the massacre was in the 1780s. Yeah, it says 1782, and by the Pennsylvania militia, technically, or that form of the government, the army at that point. But yeah, and there was supposedly Anton's. There's been dispute on Anton's wife because he died in 1774. He was basically 76 years old when he died. Died of yellow fever here. He got sick. He was only here less than a year, but he was responsible for helping build the buildings too. And he was a talented woodworker and all that. But his wife, there was controversial information thinking that I'd read that said she was killed at Gnadenhutton, but then I heard that he came here as a widow, so it might have been 2 marriages. So I don't know, you know. But some of that information, you know,
Yeah,
is
it's kinda
incomplete.
disappeared.
Incomplete, yeah. But any questions? That gives you a basic snippet. Did you enjoy your evening?
Yes, we did.
Cool. Do you guys like history?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. Well, we're looking for volunteers.
That's what Miss Laura was telling us.
Ah, yes, Laura.
She's
Yeah.
their co-op teacher, so.
Oh, I've known Laura for years.
That's how we found out about this evening was from
Okay.
her, so.
Last Wednesday we had to look at a pig's heart.
Yeah, we'll look at what?
A pig heart.
Oh, a pig heart. I knew you said. Okay. Okay.
Oh, you had to dissect one, or?
Yeah. No. I didn't dissect one, but she did, and then she showed us it.
Oh, that's
Oh.
cool.
So you were working on a walking stick, or?
No,
that's
just
too small for
that's just a demonstration of how the draw knife works. No, it's just to show. A lot of people this evening were asking, you know, the idea of how this foot vise works. It's called a shave horse. Developed, you know, Europe probably in the 12th, 13th century, and a draw knife. You know, it's super sharp here, but it's safe. You know, that your hands are over here. And the idea is, you know, you have a foot vise. You keep your foot on the foot pedal, which puts pressure on the head here, and you can shave. You know, you draw it towards yourself, and with the right wood and this is just a random branch, but with the right type of wood and understanding how the grain flows, you can cut it in a certain direction without it splitting, and you can do a lot of detailed work. But you can make Well, you can do very fine work if you have the right tool and the right talent.
Yeah.
To do, wagon wheel spokes, or I repaired a few years ago on this. One of the spindles to a spinning wheel was broken, and I replaced it with something that we made right here. So it's fun,
Yeah, well, if you have those skills, then you can
very
fix
true.
anything.
That's true.
Did they make shingles with that? Or like...
Yes, they did. That's very good. In fact, that's why it was developed, to make shingles. Very cool. How'd you know that?
Well, we're learning. Me and my sister are reading this series of books. What is it called?
The Red River.
The Red River
Yeah,
series.
about the
And it's
Norwegians going out to.
It's the Norwegians coming to America and like
Really?
living out in like the West or something, and like
And
when
they're
they
in
made
Minnesota,
shingles,
they
they had like,
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
actually, it's in North Dakota.
Yeah. This,
Okay,
this
yeah,
one
and it's
happened in North
okay.
Dakota,
Yeah,
yeah.
basically, yeah. That's really cool, though. You guys know about that, but yes, that's exactly right. This from what I've always heard too. This was developed. So you see, and I didn't realize. So the Norwegian. What year? So you're looking at
like 18.
later. Yeah. So yeah, you're well. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
in the 1800s.
Yeah, that would have been.
So you guys are into history. I can see it. You guys like that. That's
My
really
dad
good.
always loved it, so I inherited that from him.
That's excellent. Yeah. Well, that's good. There's so much history in just in Tuscarawas County.
Oh yeah.
If people don't either know or care, and that's good. You guys get into that. You got Talk to Laura. Talk to Miss Laura. She'll get you going.
And I definitely encourage them to watch Trumpet in the Land because it is a really good.
And the season's over now, but in the spring.
Yeah.
Or summer really. They open them in June again. Yeah, they'll get you going. 'Cause they rely on college actors and actresses, so it makes it tricky. Everybody's back in school, so
Yeah,
they'd
so
probably
you
love
have
to
to-
run further, but it's hard to do that.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Well, have a good evening.
You too.
Hey, thanks, girls. Glad you like it.
Well, Schoenbrunn Village. This is a really interesting place. If you definitely like history, there's a lot. And just this tiny little historical village, dating all the way back to Revolutionary War era. Well, this has been almost an hour and a half. I'm going to stop recording now. I don't know whose car that was, but done to turning this lantern that I've had the whole freaking time.